when it comes to happiness, he has a couple, I guess you have a couple takeaways about that.
Yeah.
And I think this is a great way to kind of come to a close of this episode.
Yeah, the first one is he says, human felicity, which is another word for happiness, is produced not so much by great pieces of good fortune that seldom happen, as by little advantages that occur every day. And so what this...
I'm reading that like...
To break it down, what he said was happiness is not created by great fortunes landing on you all at once, so the lottery. It's created by the little things that give us joy every single day. And so this really kind of hit me when you think about people who win the lottery, right? Like you hear these stories, and this is so true. They almost, by a year later or so, they often go broke or end up in prison or depressed or dead or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Great fortunes. When you get something all at the same time, human tendency is just to squander it, really. That's Parkinson's law. Like we talked about that before. Our version of Parkinson's law.
Can you explain what Parkinson's law is for people that don't know?
Yeah, I think the original version was work expands to fill time available, but the applicability to money is expenses expand to fill the funds available. So if you have a lot of money, you will have a lot of expenses just because you have the money to spend, right? But if you were to get money incrementally in like small parts, then you wouldn't spend as much because you don't have the money to spend, but you can spend it on things that really matter, and you get more value out of them because you think more about what you're spending. And so the little things are what matter, is what he says. And those things are often things that are free, in my opinion, just like the people you hang around with. He doesn't talk about this, but the relationships you make, the habits you build, the experiences you have, the passions you pursue, things like that. It's like the little things that you choose now have a huge impact over the course of your life.
And I think the way people can look at this is that not everything good has to happen to you all at once. You know, it's like
and you really wouldn't want it to, right? But keep going.
There's like a process, kind of. It's some people sometimes fall so obsessed, like, why am I not this at this age? When it's like, why don't you just think I can be this if I follow this process, this journey, right? So again, the whole thing of, trust the process gets reiterated throughout time in so many different ways, but it's the same idea, just different words.
Right. The last thing I want to touch on, we're almost done. We're trying to keep these episodes. We're good on time. But he says, when men are employed, they are best contented. For on the days they worked, they were good-natured and cheerful. And with the consciousness of having done a good day's work, they spent the evening jollily. If you didn't catch that, because his words or whatever, he basically just said that the men. This is when he was a general. He's talking about his soldiers. When the men were being put to work, they were happier. They had a good day. But when it was raining or they just couldn't work for whatever reason, they were all in terrible moods and they felt bad and they were sad and depressed and anxious and whatever. And so the application here is that you actually need to be working. You need to be doing something. When I say working, I don't mean making money necessarily, but doing something that you value, that makes an impact on the world, that's going to improve you or the lives of others around you, right? That is something that will give you happiness. We talked about this on a different podcast, happiness with your life.
Yeah.
The happiness of like, I'm glad with the person that I am, if that makes sense. So just things to think about. You need to be doing something with your days.
It is that struggle that I think people that retire have, where
absolutely.
They figure out they've been working their entire life, but then they realize, like, what do I do with all this free time I have, right? And so I just want to go back on like the balance thing, because this plays hand in hand with that. Because some people may argue, well, okay, you just brought up the point that when I quit working, what will I do? But it's not the idea that work is something you do for money, like you said, but work can be something you do to advance you towards mastery, towards something you are passionate about, towards a craft. So when we're talking about finding that, long-term balance, it's not that you're going to transition from this one job into not doing anything and just traveling and vacation, but you work a job that you may not like for a long time, or that you may even like.
Hopefully you like it.
And then you transition to actually doing things you are fully interested in. So maybe instead of you being an accountant, you go and then become a barista or something, or you work as a server, or you become a teacher at a school.
Exactly. And also the other thing is that once you make that transition, there's literally no pressure for you to have to make a certain amount of money or be a certain thing. Like, you've already done the hard part. If that makes sense. Like, hopefully by the time you're 30, you're not 30, well, middle age, 40 or 50, in my mind at least, you'll have completed, or done a large chunk of your goals or what you want to complete in life, right? And once you finish that, you should be financially free and whatnot, so you can really focus on what it is you truly want to do. Not that shouldn't be done in your career, but you can also kind of cut your day off whenever you want. If you just want to work on what you want to do for 6 hours a day and then go home and be with your grandchildren, like, you can do that and not feel like you're missing out or you're not providing for your family or things like that. So just things to think about as well.
And happiness is always a great way to end, because we hope you are in a good mood after listening to this much shorter episode. But what are the last takeaways you have